Hello and welcome YouTube to my Halo 3 History of Race video part 2 of 2. This video shows some of the first maps and the first types of maps on all of the Mythic maps, the Mythic Map Pack 1 and the Mythic Map Pack 2. However, there was very few maps made on the Mythic Map Pack 2. But anyways, this first map here is called Regold by HT Arbr. And this was one of the very, very few maps that I found made on Orbital, which was part of the Mythic Map Packs 1. And this map is pretty cool. It's the only map that has like a little bit of like a banked turn to it that I could find. I really only found two maps in total on Orbital, and this was one of them. The second one was Jupiterminal, and this one was made by Rogue Shaddo. And this is a cool map. It's mostly, well, not really a terrain track, but it uses just like the natural flooring of the map as opposed to having any bank turns as the previous map did. But Rogue Shaddo is one of the greatest double-wide racetrack forgers on Sandbox. He'll be in my top 10 Sandbox double-wide forgers video series, and you can see him in there. But this is the only map that he made that won't be in there. But anyways, this map is called Preview by Killer 200 and egodude, both of whose maps you've seen already. Killer's the co-founder of Racing, egodude is the founder of the Backflip, and this map was released in late February. However, this map pack wasn't released until the middle of March in 2009. So this map somehow was made before the map pack was even released. I have a few maps that are later than the release date says of the Mythic maps, but this map preview got about 36,000 downloads. It's a great map. People weren't sure if geo-merging or interlocking items was going to be canceled, you know, if Bungie would cut that out, because people were doing that in before this and all the other maps. But you know, this map just kind of, you know, cleared everyone's heads with that idea. But this one's called Infrared Cruise by DR ST, and then pretty much just a bunch of numbers. But this was one of the very first racetracks on Sandbox. It was a Battle Tracks map. I believe this is the first ever Battle Tracks maps. This one also said it was released in very early March, before the map pack was ever released. This next one is Drawbridge by Agent Brute 117. Agent Brute made tons of popular maps. His YouTube videos, I believe the YouTube video for this map got over 200,000 downloads. 200,000 views. This map itself got nearly 50,000 downloads. A few of his other ones got multiple thousands. He was a very popular forger. His maps were not nearly as smooth as some of the other forgers who came later than him. However, his maps weren't the best or the smoothest, but they were very, very fun. And I had all of his maps, and I loved them, and I couldn't tell the difference between them and the much smoother maps, but it doesn't even matter because they were a lot of fun. But this was the third earliest map I could possibly find on Sandbox. Again, these aren't the earliest, but some of the very earliest. This is Paramount by AnF Knight, and this is the first good, decent double-wide on Sandbox. And this one, I believe, also got like 50,000 downloads. It's an incredible map. I remember I found this one in a guy's file share who had like 12 of the earliest and best Sandbox double-wide maps, and I used to play all of them a lot, and this was one of them, and it's just an incredible map. A lot of fun. It reconnects perfectly. It's not as perfectly smooth and with giant banked waves as some of the later ones that come, but it's still a great map. This is Backburner by Rogue Shaddo. I'm only going to do an overview of this one. It is one of the earliest maps, one of the earliest battle tracks and double wides, one of the best as well. But you'll see this in my in a different Halo 3 racing history video, the top 10 best double wide Sandbox forgers, which he is in, so I didn't want to show it twice. This one is Dark Dunes by Masta Blastr, and he made only a few maps that I could find on Sandbox. However, this one was one of the earliest terrain tracks I could find. I couldn't find very many terrain tracks. I didn't know who made them, but I downloaded this one, and it was pretty close to the release date of the Mythic Map Pack. It came out a few weeks after, so this is one of the first good terrain tracks on Sandbox. There is a little double wide section up here, which is pretty cool that he can make double wide sections and terrain, but it's called Dark Dunes because it's up in the dunes, and I believe this is before almost any map was ever made up in the dunes with the Guardians blocked, so it was definitely pretty cool. This one's called Sandy Trails by Lil Kyle 15. It was made, I believe, only 2 days after Dark Dunes, but Lil Kyle was a great forger. He made double wide maps as well, like Intrepid, and he made one map with Spectacular Raw, who is one of the best double wide forgers and considered one of the greatest racetrack forgers of all time overall. And this is just a pretty fun map, fairly similar to Dark Dunes, but definitely different. This one's a lot longer. Instead of pretty much being entirely in the dunes, this one does have quite a bit of a section on the floor part of Sandbox as well. And it's just a lot of fun. I never appreciated terrain tracks until I came back and played a few, but they really were fun. And making the bordering was easy, but choosing where you wanted to make the terrain was the hard part. This one is Sandstream by Laxman91. One of the first tournament tracks, I believe, on Sandbox. It was one of the only ones I could find. And Laxman made lots of tournament tracks. He ended up winning best tournament track, I believe, of all time on the Halo Tracks website. And this is just a really cool map. I never appreciated maps like this, but now I do, of course. Tournament tracks are pretty much maps that are completely unsheetable, perfectly bordered, usually on the shorter side with a little bit of sky and a little bit of terrain in it. Usually more so terrain, though. And this one's Golden Oasis by Goldman 010. And this is a really cool map. This one's also a tournament track, and this one is just, these are some of the only ones I could find. However, luckily the ones I could find were pretty significantly good ones. This one uses, again, mostly terrain. However, there is a little bit of a double wide section at the end. There's this cool part using the tin cups. I don't think anyone had ever done that at the time. And then a perfect little double wide U-turn. So there is a little bit of double wide in these maps. However, they're more focused for just tournament racing. Completely unsheetable maps, a lot of square turns, but a few sky tracks. This one's Pardon Our Dust by Killer 200 and egodude. These are two of the this is the second of 3 maps that they made together on Sandbox that you will see. This is the third one they made together. Preview was the first, and you will see the second one in the top 20 most downloaded racetracks video. But this is just such a cool map. It was a pretty early double-wide map on Sandbox. It had some pretty cool scenery on it. There was like a smiley face thing, and I'm not sure what the thing next to them was. I never knew what it was, but I really liked it. And it's just a fun map. It's not perfectly smooth, but it's just fast-paced and a whole lot of fun. I always loved this map. I found it pretty early on. This one's called Nitrous Vapour by Vapor Knuckles, and I just want to show like how maps get smoother and smoother as time progressed in Sandbox. This one wasn't made too late into Sandbox, but it was made later than the previous ones I showed. And Vapor Knuckles didn't make a whole lot of maps, unfortunately. There's only like 2 or 3 in his file share on Sandbox. But this is just a really big, really smooth double-wide map. And it's just a great map, and a lot of the double-wide maps that were really good you'll see either in my top 20 most downloaded video or my 10 best Sandbox double-wide forgers video. So there was just a few other great double-wide maps like Pardon Our Dust, and this one and the next map you'll see that deserve to be featured. This one is Extremity by AnF Knight, and this is just one of those maps that just spirals within itself a lot. But this one's really cool. It has this very unique feature where an earlier part of the track has a roof, and that ends up being the finished part of the track, so you drive on the roof, and that's such a cool feature. I kind of copied that idea for my map Mulholland in Halo Reach, But I always loved this map. This was always one of my favorites, one of the ones that boggled my mind the most, just because it, you know, entwined within itself so much, and it was so incredibly smooth. Both this and Paramount were great maps. I'm pretty sure those are the only two double-wide maps he made. But, you know, if you're only going to make two maps, Paramount and Extremity are two pretty good ones to make. This is Quantum by Bam3214. You'll see this one actually multiple times in my top 20 most downloaded video. So I'm just doing an overview, but this one was released pretty much the day Sandbox came out, or a few days after. It was the very first roller coaster on Sandbox, and this was the very first roller coaster as roller coasters are known today. Big, long, huge, because before that you couldn't really make one. You didn't have enough pieces on other maps, but that was the first like roller coaster ever. And this one is Devil's Knot by T7 Konvicted. As you'll notice, I am in Forge mode because there's the grid. This map wasn't compatible with the racetrack's game type. But on YouTube, this map got thousands of downloads, thousands of views. It got like 47,000 downloads as a map. It's a crazy good map. It's definitely challenging, really challenging, more so than Quantum, I'd say. But this is just one of the best. I think this and Quantum are like the two greatest of the popular roller coasters. There was a few smooth roller coasters that came later on, like the Barbarian by Rogue Shaddo and Hypernova by SMM 2010 and Dream, which were awesome maps, very good. But I just think roller coasters aren't meant to be smooth or double wides like the maps I mentioned. Roller coasters are meant to be, you know, spirally and bumpy and long and fun and fast-paced like these ones. So I definitely prefer these ones over the smooth ones, but that's not to say that the smooth ones are not good maps. But this map is just really cool. It's really long too. I mean, Quantum was a long map as well, but this one is. This little thin section here made me mess up like 5 laps in a row. I kept, you know, that's near the end of the lap, and I kept getting to that point and falling off, so I was getting pretty frustrated when I was going to record the video. A few months before, I actually got on and I played this map, and I beat it on my first try, so, you know, I was like, this will be no problem, but it ended up being a little bit challenging. So, anyways, this map here is called Glazed V2 by Can't Stop Donut, and Can't Stop Donut, I'm sure you all know because of Halo Reach, and his map Jelly is the most downloaded good racetrack in Halo Reach with over 70,000 downloads. But he also made a map called Glazed in Halo Reach, but that was because he had this map called Glazed V2 in Halo 3. And in the description of this map, he's like, you know, it's a great map, even better than Quantum, because everyone knew Quantum. Everyone knew Quantum. And so, you know, he figured if he said that, people would like it. But I saw a YouTube video of this map. I used to watch hundreds of YouTube videos on Halo 3 maps, and I ended up friend requesting him, you know, and because I liked the map. But this was pretty much the only roller coaster he ever made on Halo 3. He made a bunch of like supercross tracks, and well, motocross tracks, but this was the only roller coaster he made. But it was a really good map. I like this one. I just talked to him, and he said that this was the map that he was most proud of out of all his Halo 3 and his Halo Reach maps, even though his Halo Reach maps were incredibly popular. You know, he had 4 maps or so with over, you know, 25,000 downloads in Halo Reach, including the most downloaded good racetrack. So that's saying something if he's more proud of this than them. It is a great map. And this next one is called The Abyss by RLD Hot Tamale. Yeah, RLD is a friend of mine. He's part of ProForgeRacing, but that's not why I put this map in here. RLD Hot Tamale is, in my opinion, the greatest roller coaster forger ever, because he was one of the best in Halo 3, as well as, in my opinion, the very best in Halo Reach. So you put those together, and, you know, most of the best in Halo 3 quit after Halo 3 and didn't continue in Reach. And a lot of the greats in Halo Reach who aren't quite as good as RLD didn't even forge in Halo 3. So that's why I would say he's the best roller coaster forger ever in Halo history. But he made some great maps like this one. It is the first ever roller coaster to go around the Guardian Tower. There was one racetrack to ever do that before, and it was Deviation by Stoyben and Zor, but it was a double wide map, not a roller coaster. And this one is just incredible. You know, big jumps, a whole lot of fun. This one is called Space and Woods by AnF Ryan. And this map is a scenery map, and it has these trees, and it's got an airplane, and the scenery is why it's called Woods. And there's a few effects that spawn, and it keeps changing colors. You know, first like a gray, like, I'm not sure the exact effect name, but it's a gray effect spawns, and then the juicy effect spawns, so it becomes more colorful again, and that's why it's called Space, because there's, you know, crazy colors going on. And the reason I have this map in here is to show you that in Halo 3 there were scenery racetracks, because scenery was really hard to do in Halo 3, not only because the pieces weren't good, but you had a very slim budget in Halo 3. If you wanted to make a decent length track like this one and have scenery, it was tough, and that's why this map isn't quite as long as the others, because it has so much scenery, but I'd say it's worth it. And there just weren't quite as many of them, but there were some. And this one is Dino World by Flowtown Hockey. Flowtown Hockey made some great maps in Halo 3, and this was one of them. There's a bird with its eggs, and you know, a big dinosaur that's head over the track, and a tall dinosaur looking down at the track over here, and there's this explosive, like, I don't know, like meteor thing going on. And his tracks had starting gates, where he had one or two pieces deleted so you couldn't go, and then he had the red, yellow, blue lights going on. And this map was not one of the first scenery tracks. That's not what I'm saying with this one. It was made very late into Halo Reach, into Halo 3, excuse me. However, it's just, who knows what the first ones were, and there's not a whole lot I know of. These were just two that I loved and I know of. This one is called Aces High by Taxman24. I believe the creator of the hardcore racetracks game type. But this map is not a hardcore track, it is a stunt track. And I wanted to show you that there were some pretty cool stunt tracks in Halo 3. Stunt tracks in Halo 3 couldn't be quite as stuntful as you can in Reach, if you will. Because, you know, you just didn't have as many pieces or options. But this is the coolest looking tunnel ever. You have the checkpoint in there, and then it's a giant jump. It's so cool. That's pretty much what a stunt track was in Halo 3. That's what HaloTracks.org considered stunt tracks. Tracks that had one really cool stunt in them. And this one is called Escargot, which is really creative because there's a giant snail on the map named Bob, who is named after a funny song. But this is a really cool map. It's called Escargot because, you know, that means like vehicle go, like the vehicle goes. And escargot is the French word for snails, so that's a really creative title. The track itself isn't that well made. It's not that terribly smooth, but it brings you up so high in Sandbox on the Sky Bubble, your mongoose ends up doing this, and you have to drive really slow. And then he has some gravity lifts, excuse me, that can throw you. But then not only is there a giant snail, so it's kind of a scenery track, but there's a perfect front flip through the snail, which is just so cool and hilarious. But this map's called Cyanide HC by Taxman24, one of his first ever hardcore tracks. I believe he was the creator of the hardcore tracks game type in Halo 3, and hardcore tracks are pretty much just a normal racetrack, like a double wide or something like that, with, you know, not only obstacles but traps as well, like a sudden hole in the track and things that can push you off. There's some that are much harder than others, but the first few weren't so hard. They just had a few obstacles and they weren't that hardcore, but as time progressed they started getting more and more hardcore. This one is called Ignite HC by Churchy with 9 Y's at the end of Church. But This is a really cool map. It's one of the first. He was one of the only hardcore track makers, along with Taxman and Sprint Fusion and Masta Pipes and Matimator. Those were pretty much the only 5 that I know about. But these 2, I believe, were the biggest into the category, Churchy and Taxman. So that is why I chose to show their maps, because I didn't want to show, 5 hardcore maps, because they weren't as popular. But this one's called My Apocalypse, also made by Taxman. And the reason I have this one in, it wasn't one of his first, but it was one of his best. This is just really cool, because instead of just being like a normal double-wide map, it's just much different. And it's just kind of cool. Like, there's this jump part right here, and it's hard to land. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a very cool map. And then there's this giant kill ball, and you don't know where to go, because you think it's going to kill you, but he made it so you can drive through it. And there's actually a backflip in the middle there that you can choose to go on, but the backflip does not work so very well at all. But it is definitely a hardcore track to some extent. It's just not, it was just different, that's why I chose it. But this one's called Poppin Zone V4. Around the Poppin in the zone, there was these little B symbols. They were like B, but with a different font. But I couldn't find that symbol. But it's called Poppin Zone V4, and this is by SDTX Pappies Are Us. And this is the very first Supercross track I could find. There were very, very few made in Halo 3 at all. And Purple Dinosaur, who made a few that you'll see after this, said he only heard of one map ever before he made his. And this one was made before his, and it's not the one that he was talking about. So there's at least one other early one, but I have some of the very first ones in here, along with one that I think is the best. This one's called Elite Cross, and it is by Purple Dinosaur. The version in his file share says it was made like 2 months after, but I found this one in Pappies Are Us's file share, and this one says it was made much earlier. But this was only made about 2 days after Pappy's map, so it's very, very early. It's really fun. And a lot of people think that Supercross did not exist in Halo 3, and that it was created in Reach, and that if there was any in Halo 3, they sucked. But that's wrong. There was plenty of really good ones. I know that King Edward, I'm pretty sure, made one. BLH728 made one. Epic Forger, who's one of the best double-wide forgers. You'll see him in that series. He made at least 2, but unfortunately I couldn't get download links to them for to show them. But this one's called Stadium Cross by Goldman 010 and Halo Killer 1247. And this is a really cool Supercross track. This is, again, one of the very first, the third earliest one I could find. Just an awesome, awesome map. This one has less, like, split sections. It's pretty much just a bunch of big jumps, but most of them work pretty consistently, so I really, really like this map a lot. As you'll see, these last couple jumps are much bigger, and they're just a whole lot of fun. And, Supercross tracks couldn't be quite as long or quite as thorough as they can be in Halo Reach, but they were still very much alive and very, very good and fun in Halo 3. And, Purple Dinosaur was one of the only ones who actually made multiple maps, along with this forger, KGBXD, who made Requiem 2.3, which is this map. And this is one of the best, in my opinion. It was the best of all the Supercross tracks I've ever played. This was the best. It was just so much fun. All the jumps work really well. He has this cool-looking berm. His current gamer tag is Jeff H, and then a whole bunch of numbers. But, Jeff H 3962. He is the current owner of the website halotracks.org, an awesome website, the official website of Halo Racing. After the website went down, unfortunately, and it went over to a website called Trigger Smash, and then there was no Halo Tracks anymore. Jeff bought it and spent a whole lot of money on it and a whole lot of time, and he revived it, and Halo Tracks is coming back thanks to him, so that's awesome. But this map, Requiem 2.3, was just awesome. And it's cool because Jeff mostly made double-wide maps. He made at least 10 double-wide maps on Sandbox, or around 10 anyways. But he also made a bunch of Supercross tracks, including that one, which is my favorite. Now, this map is called Longhorn MX, and this was made by Purple Dinosaur. And I remember there was a motocross contest towards the end of Halo 3 on Halo Tracks, and so there were quite a few motocross maps made. I know there was one by BLH and one by Can't Stop Donut, which was a lot of fun. But this was the first one I could find, and this one's really cool. This is pretty much how motocross tracks are, still in Halo Reach, just terrain, and then you know, a few natural landing jumps and a few just built-in, completely forged jumps. But just a whole lot of fun. I love this map. You will also see one made by V-Ionized in the top 10 best sandbox double-wide racetrack forgers series. And this map, I love that last jump. When it works perfectly, which is most of the time, it's just incredible. This next map is The Dip by Aurora JTEX. This map is made on the second Mythic Map Pack. This is the only forgeable map on the second Mythic Map Pack. Pretty much the only one that you can forge on. This one's called Longshore, because Citadel and Heretic you couldn't really forge on. But anyways, this one's called Zorshore by XXZorXX, and it's kind of like a roller coaster, so it's very, very cool. Also, Orbital and not Orbital, Assembly from the first Mythic Map Pack you couldn't forge on at all, racetracks. So this is the only one from the second Mythic Map Pack, though. And I could really only find 3 racetracks. The Dip by Aurora, Zorshore by Zor, who is also one of the top 10 best double-wide racetrack forgers. You'll see him in that series. And this is AnF, which was the third one I could find, by Spectacular Raw. Again, he's also in that double-wide series, and he's considered the greatest racetrack forger of all time by halotracks.org. And this is a really short map, but it has 2, banked square turns, and then one natural turn, or 2, pretty much. But these are the latest maps ever on the latest map. But anyways, thank you guys very much for watching. Be sure, if you didn't, that you watched part 1 as well. This is the history of Halo Racing. These were the first maps of every category, or some of the first, and some of the earliest. So, thank you for watching. Hopefully we will get a whole lot of new racetrack forgers in Halo 4. As we did in Halo Reach from Halo 3. And be sure to go to halotracks.org if you have not, and sign up. There are racing squads, which are each their own league that focus on different things. And there's just, there's people posting maps, there's people testing maps, there's a whole lot of fun going on there. So be sure to go to that website. But thank you guys so much for watching. Now you know the history of Halo Racing as we know it today.